Hello fellow haters of the blue and welcome to my channel, and also welcome to a new installment of the Heavy Contrast series. And in this episode I will be painting a new Sister of Battle, particularly a Sister of Battle of the Order of the Argent Shroud. So let's get cracking. As you can see, we are starting from a base coat of Corax White, and the first step will be to paint the inner part of her robes. In this case, I will do it using Flesh Tearers Red. Be careful with Flesh Tearers Red because it can go really dark if you let it pool too much. Don't let the Flesh Tearers Red pool on the bottom side of her robes too much. With our inner robes now base coated, I'm going to base coat the armor. For this I'm using Ironbreaker. I choose Ironbreaker because it's quite a light metallic color and will look fantastic for Argent Shroud. Be very careful with the parts that you just painted with Flesh Tearers Red. Just go slowly where the armor meets the inner robes. The base coat of Ironbreaker is now finished on all the armor, and I'm going to take a moment to base coat the metal on the bolter with Iron Hand Steel. Both these steps will be shaded with the same color, so I want to save time and do it all at the same time. With both our steel base coats done, I'm going to shade them all. For this I'm using a mix of Black Templar and Contrast Medium. This is 1 part Black Templar and 3 parts Contrast Medium. Just apply this as a wash over all the metallics that we just base coated. Sometimes you will have too much pooling in certain areas that you want to be a bit brighter, so it's a good thing to go around, check everything is in order, and then keep on going. Our wash of Black Templar is now done, and I'm going to re-highlight all the armor using Ironbreaker again. What I will do is just go over the parts that I feel should be lighter and brighter, and just reapply the Ironbreaker to them. I have my Ironbreaker quite thin and flows very easily. Always end the brushstroke where you want more Ironbreaker to deposit. That way you will get a natural transition just from the way you move your brush. Our layering of Ironbreaker is now done on all over the armor, and I'm going to highlight it for the last time using Stormhold Silver. What to do with the Stormhold Silver is provide an edge highlight around all the panels, but also thin it down to the same consistency as the Ironbreaker. Kind of very subtle, and lay that again on the raised parts. Also with the Stormhold Silver, don't forget to edge highlight the metal on the bolter. Our highlight with the Stormhold Silver is now done, and I'm going to apply a slight filter of blue into the shadows. For this I'm using Talazar Blue, and I'm thinning this down to a very thin glaze consistency using Lamian Medium. You can use Contrast Medium if you want. I just find for glazing Lamian Medium works better for me. This is the kind of consistency we're aiming for. So super thin. I'm now going to paint the leather corset and gloves, and first I'm base coating them using mechanical standard. Our base coat of mechanical standard grey is dry, and I'm going to base coat all the joints and all the tubes with Corax white. With the tubes and joints cleaned up with Corax white, I also took the liberty to paint all the white parts of the armor with Corax white. I'm going to do a layer of Grief Charger grey over the tubes and the joints on the armor. While the Grief Charger grey dries, I'm going to do a coat of Apothecary white over the white parts of the armor. I'm now going to apply Black Templar over the tubes, the joints, and all the leather we base coated with mechanical standard grey. I'm now going to do a recessed shade of Grief Charger grey in the white parts of the armor. Just pick up all the edges, where the panels meet, rivets. Now that we have our white shaded and almost ready to go, I'm just going to finish it now, and for this I'm doing an edge highlight using white. Pick up all the edges, the rivets. I'm going to paint now all the joints and tubes, and I'm going to highlight them using Administratum Grey. And for a final highlight on the joints and tubes, I'm using Fluent Grey. What I will do with Fluent Grey is just a small dot in the tops of the folds on the joints, and small dots just in the top part of each ridge. With the tubes done, I'm going to do the red parts. For this, I'm doing an edge highlight, a thick edge highlight using Epsom Scarlet. In certain parts, like some of the most soft folds, you may want to do a glaze of Epsom Scarlet to create a soft highlight, like for example here. You want this kind of consistency, so very thin paint, and just move the brush in the direction you want more paint to deposit, creating the highlight there. For the next highlight on the red part, I'm going to use Wild Rider Red. We'll do a thin edge highlight with this all across our red parts. Be sure you leave in some of the Epsom Scarlet showing in between the layers. For our next highlight, I'm going to use Yokairo Orange. Just do the same thin edge highlight, just take up a smaller area than previously, concentrate it towards the corners and where the folds intersect with the edges. For a final highlight on the reds, I'm going to use Tau Light Ochre. Again, do a thin edge highlight, but even smaller than the previous one. Now that the red is done, I'm going to tackle something a bit more boring, because I cannot avoid it anymore, and that is painting the black leather. For this I'm starting with a highlight of Thunderhawk Blue. For our next highlight on the black leather, I'm going to use Fenrisian Grey. And for the final highlight on the leather, I'm going to use Woodfall Grey. What I will do with Woodfall Grey is just a small dots in the brightest spots. Our leather is finished and I just need to base coat of the bone cloth. And what I did is neaten up everything that is yet to be painted with contrast paint using Corax White. And I'm now going to apply over the ropes a mix of 1 part skeleton hold and 1 part contrast medium. Be very careful not to mess up the reds or the armor with this. Just apply this all over the ropes. Watch out for heavy pulling like this, we don't want this at all. So clean your brush, absorb it until you get the desired level of pulling. While my skeleton hoard dries over the ropes, I'm going to base coat the bolter casing using Flester's Red. As you can see, I really messed up the red because I was a fool and I had all the metallic painted before I did the casing, which was a big mistake. If you are trying to replicate this, wait to paint all the metallic parts of the bolter after you painted the red. You see, I messed up here, here. Don't you worry, I will be repainting this later on. And now I'm going to tackle all the purity seals. For this I'm using a mix of 1 part wildwood and 4 parts contrast medium. As always, watch out for pulling, you don't want that amount of paint there. Just clean your brush and absorb all the excess. Now the skeleton hoard is dried, I'm going to do another shade over the bone color cloth using 5 layer flesh. I will mostly concentrate it around all the objects that are on top of the clothes, like those symbols, but I will also run it into the recesses to reinforce. Now I'm going to base coat all the rest of the leather pads using wildwood. It turns out I'm not very clever and I forgot to paint a couple of red details with Flester's Red. That is of course her symbol here. And of course her eye lenses. For the lenses, you want to try and start the brush stroke in the part you want lightest and then in the part you want darker, but it's more important you try to be neat. And while the red dries, I'm going to paint all the gold details, starting with the bolts here. The skull here on top. With that out of the way, I can actually glue the arms together because they won't interfere anymore. And I will also paint the wax from the purity seal. For this I'm using Volupus Pink. As you can see, I already cleaned up that using Corax White. I'm going to highlight the bone ropes and the purity seals using Palette Witch Flesh. Our highlights of palette with flesh are now done. I'm going to move into the last highlight for both the parchment and the bone colored ropes, and that is white. I'm just going to do a very thin edge highlight as we did, but now concentrated towards the brightest spots like corners, edges, etc. With our parchment and the white ropes finished, I'm going to finish the wax seal, just doing a dot highlight using a Shapti bone. I'm going to highlight the leather, first of all using Kark stone. And finally, just a very small highlight using Ushapti bone. And now a final dot highlight using palette with flesh. Just a small dot in each corner. Now I want to finish off both purity seals, and I'm using wildwood to create the text. I'm going to now finish off the bolter, first of all doing an edge highlight of Evilson Scarlet. For next highlight I'm going to use Wild Rider Red. And I will try to make a thinner edge highlight than our previous one. Also with Wild Rider Red, I will paint the front of her eyes right here. For a third highlight on the bolter, I'm going to use Fire Dragon Bright. With this, I will try to make an edge highlight as thick as our previous one, just concentrated it into the corners and sharper edges. Also on her eyes, I will do a smaller highlight, again towards the top. And finally, on the bolter and the eyes, I'm going to do a dot highlight using Luganath Orange. Pick up the rivets, corners. And just for her eyes, I'm going to do a dot of white in the back. With that last step, our Argent Shroud sister is almost done. There's just a couple of details left. And first of all, I'm going to paint all the rest of the steel metallic details using Iron Hand steel. That includes the details in the holsters. But also, if you messed up any of the metallic parts on the bolter, like I did, just repaint them. What I will do is just repaint the whole section and paint it again. Don't be afraid to go back and fix mistakes. Mistakes happen and it's just a bit of paint. While those metallic details dry, I'm going to shade all the decorative gold details. For this, I'm using Guillemot Flesh. And now for our final shade, I'm going to use the same mix I did with Black Templar and Contrast Medium. This is 1 part Black Templar and 3 parts Contrast Medium to shade the rest of the steel details and the details that we messed up previously, and I have to reshade. Also, shade with this the bolter rounds in the magazine that's already loaded. As well as the metal details, I'm going to do a layer of this over the Inquisition symbol that it's here. Before finishing all the metal details, I want to finish the Inquisition symbol. For this I'm using Taskcore Fur. And I will do an edge highlight with this all around the edge. And I will also do some lines simulating like a marble texture. And finally, with the sharp T-bone, I'm just going to do some dots in the corners. And now finally, to finish off the whole of our piece, I'm going to do a final edge highlight of Stormhold Silver over the whole of the metallics. That includes the gold details, like this one, the brass on the casings, and of course all the steel details that we base coated and shaded in the previous steps. And with that last step done, the Argent Shroud, Sister of Battle, is done. And I will say I've fallen in love with this color scheme. It's probably my favorite. It just looks so good. So guys, as always, I really hope you liked this video and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye! Do you want to decide what I paint in the channel or want to get direct feedback from me? Then consider Patreon. I have a Patreon account, you have the link in the description below. Patreon helps me do all the cool projects that I want to make and helps me improve the quality of my video. Don't be afraid. No content will ever be hidden behind a paywall, but it's a nice way to help me and you will get something back for your generosity. As I said guys, thank you very much for watching, and a special thank you to Kevin Sulars, Kid Leonard, Renat Lindemann, Victor Domen, Jose Pablo, Jonathan Ekerun, and Kieran O'Muirfeil for being the coolest persons in the planet. Be like these fine folks, join my Patreon, and take control.